Welcome to today's 5-minute Bible study in the book of Deuteronomy. Today we're in Deuteronomy chapter 5. We're looking at verses 8 through 10. Now this section of Deuteronomy is the 10 Commandments. Moses is once again giving the 10 Commandments to the children of Israel. Yesterday we saw the first commandment, the foundational one, you shall have no other gods before me. The second commandment is similar. It is a prohibition against idolatry. Now, when we read the commandments, we tend to think, well, the first and the second are basically the same, but they're not quite the same. There's some distinction. So let's read the second, this prohibition against idolatry, and talk a little bit about it. The command says, you shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above, or the earth beneath, or the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commands. So the Israelites are told they are not to make an image, an idol, in order to worship it. Now, how is this different from the first commandment, you shall have no other gods? Well, there's some slight difference. The second command is a prohibition against making something that you think stands for God. It is to make an image or an idol, some kind of carving of wood or of stone or something else you create. And then you worship that thing as though it stands in the place of God. It's, of course, very similar to the first commandment. You have another God before you, which is already prohibited. But this is to make an image of the deity or of God and worship that image or that idol. It may have been that the temptation to idolatry is to think, well, we're going to worship only the Lord who delivered us, but we're going to make an image of him, something we can see. You see, the Israelites were used to seeing people worship images. They had seen all those idols, all those images in Egypt that was so much a part of Egyptian worship. The Egyptian gods were portrayed by images or by idols. And so perhaps the Israelites were thinking, well, we'll still worship the true God, but we'll make an image of him. We'll make a representation of him. But what happens, of course, is you begin to worship that image or that creation of your own hand, that idol. And so God simply says, no, I am spirit. I'm far beyond anything you can make. So you shall not make idols, you shall not make images, you shall not make anything that you place as an object of worship, even if you think it might be a representative of me. Also, there's something else about this second command I want you to see. When we set about as humans to make an image or an idol that we will worship, we are really placing ourselves in the form of God. In other words, we're not worshiping the God who made us. We are worshiping a God that we have made. Do you see how that reverses the role? We no longer think of ourselves as submissive to God. We begin to think of ourselves as God creating the thing we will worship. You see, the biblical revelation is that God made us. He is the creator, obviously, and we are to worship him who made us. But in the second command, we're told about the temptation to think that we are God. So you see, when you make an image, when you make an idol, you are making your own God and worshiping it. You're trying to take the place of God himself. And isn't this the original sin? What was it that Satan came to Adam and Eve and tempt them to? He said, if you'll take of this fruit, you will be like God. You will be like God. That's temptation. Instead of worshiping God, why don't you become God yourself? That's the original sin. And in the second commandment, we see we are still tempted to that original sin. Why don't you just make your own God? In other words, be God yourself. So the Lord says, oh no, you'll worship only me, and you'll not make an image or an idol of anything as if you could create God. You cannot. Only the true God, the Lord Almighty, is creator, and we are to worship only him. So, Second commandment makes it quite clear. You are not to make an image or an idol of anything. You are to worship only God as he has revealed himself to you through his powerful word. Hope you join us tomorrow as we continue. I want to look a little bit more at this second commandment because there's more to say about it, but we'll look at that next time. So join us for our next 5-minute Bible study in the book of Deuteronomy.